Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleeping dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening I have one dream in three parts, three little parts, one of which features a shootout. So let's get into it and see what's going on here. The first dreamlet, as I call it, was the dreamer reports that a friend, a female friend, was in the kitchen, I assume it the dreamer's home, being a tease. That's the end. Nothing else. Moving on to the next part, the dreamer reports that had was dreaming of a syllabus for a judo competition or the requirements for being graded to receive a higher belt, and specifically the colors orange, green, blue, and brown belts. And the dream ends there. Then, in the third part of this dream, the dreamer reports that the dreamer was going home in the car, driving towards home, with his family, wife and children, on a major road, a small highway. I mean, not a two-lane highway. They came to a stop. The dreamer reports it came to a stop at some lights, and there was a police car in front of his car. A female officer exited the police car and began to have some kind of altercation with a car that was next to the police car. When she did that, apparently the people in the car actually started to attack the police officer. While this was going on, apparently, other police vehicles came from different directions. Armed police surrounded the car, issued some kind of warning, and then a volley of shots went off, with quite a number of people being hit and quite a lot of blood. And the dream ends there. Now, it's some very different things going on this dream. But whether it's a series of dreams that have been dreamt in close proximity, or strange continuations of one dream, the bits are related in some way. So we'll just see what's going on. Well, we start with the first dream, the one liner, where this female friend is being a tease, presumably towards the dreamer. And my questions here are, well, who is this friend? What does this friend represent? Because, as I keep saying, the people in our dreams aren't necessarily themselves, they represent some aspect of ourselves. So, what does this friend evoke in the dreamer? What is it about this female friend that resonates with the dreamer? Now, the dreamer reports that this person was in the kitchen, being a tease. Now, teasing can take many forms. What does that mean to be a tease? Was it in a joking way? Was it in a sexual way? Was it in a mean spirited way? What was this teasing about? And what was the intent behind it? And what did it all evoke for the dreamer? How did the dreamer feel about this person being a tease, whatever kind of teasing they were doing? The other thing was interesting about this. If you think of when we dream of houses, they often represent our inner life, or various parts of ourselves. And the kitchen in any household anywhere in the world is the heart of the house, because everybody passes through there. It's indispensable. The other place being the bathroom, but that's another story. But there's something about this person being in the heart of the house, the in the heart, if you will, figuratively speaking, of the dreamer's inner life. And there's some kind of uh, implication of it, some kind of romantic implication here. What in what way, I don't know, but kitchens, to me anyway, and I have found for other people, usually represents the center of a person's life, something that is quite essential and central to their life. But we'll leave that for the moment and we move on to the next little dreamlet, which was about judo syllabus for different belts. Um, Now, this is evaluation, apparently going over information for it to be evaluated to be for a promotion or upgrade or to a higher level, to a new belt. Um, my question here was is it to extrapolate a little bit and to ask the dreamer where in the dreamer's life that the dreamer may feel that there's some kind of upgrade or evaluation in some way that's occurring. Is that actually occurring? Was there an actual judo competition? I mean, it's sometimes, you know, bits of our day-to-day lives will end up in our dreams as a bit of a smokestack just to burn off minor stresses. It comes up in snippets in our dreams. So my question here was there an actual judo competition? Um, and was is perhaps that came up, that performance anxiety, so to speak, came up in relation to an actual competition. Um, excuse me. Then we get to this crazy shootout. Um, the dreamer reports that he was driving with his family going on their way home when this altercation breaks out at a stop during a stoplight, a red light. Now, the it was a woman officer that kind of set this whole scene in motion by getting out of her car to speak to these people in the car next to the police car. Now, there was a number of things that kind of jumped out at me, especially since half of my families are, are or were police officers or in some kind of law enforcement. So it kind of, that mindset kind of slips in. But um, why was this woman officer on her own? Generally, they, at least, especially in a patrol car, generally work in twos. So that kind of struck me as being strange, but leaving that for the moment and come back to that in a second. My question here for the dreamer was that how did the dreamer perceive or think of or feel about this officer, this female officer? Because it's the only police officer that is identified in this whole scenario, is this one woman officer. I mean, one can assume that the other officers that eventually arrived on the scene were male and female, or all male, who knows? But excuse me, the only one that is mentioned is this one female officer. And I wonder how the dreamer feels about female authority figures. Oh, excuse me. Is there a female authority figure in that looms in some way in the dreamer's waking life? And how does the dreamer feel about that? Now, the other questions that came up with this is why did the officer feel the need to challenge these people in this vehicle? And the other thing, like I said, standard operating procedure. If these people needed to be stopped, usually, they're kind of shepherded to some place where they won't endanger anyone else. But at a stoplight with people all around, this officer decides to go for it. And which I just find really quite strange, putting other people in unnecessary danger. And my question here for the dreamer was, well, in terms of policing in general or the police, what does the dreamer feel? Were they being responsible, irresponsible? Just what? What are the dreamer's thoughts and feelings around that? Then we come to this gang of people that were in this car that the officer went to speak to. Who were they? Did the dreamer know them? I mean, are they just random strangers that happen to be in this vehicle, most likely? But what does this gang or group of people represent for the dreamer? And again, why was this officer alone when she was approached this vehicle and then got jumped? I mean, what was going on there? There just seems to be a lot of things that just don't quite make sense. But my question here for the dreamer is there an area of the dreamer's life where they may feel that he's being ganged up on in some way, that people are ganging up on him? Then you have the police that arrive. Other vehicles, all of a sudden, lights flashing and sirens going, all come, all at once. And there's these armed, armed armed police that show up as well. And after giving a warning, I assume a verbal warning, shots were fired, and a lot of people got hit, and there was a lot of blood. But where did these vehicles come from? Was this something that was prearranged? Were they just caught up in traffic? Why weren't they there in the beginning? If this group of people were so dangerous, why weren't they there in advance? And something worked out and arranged. It almost seems like they were caught unawares or on the fly. Um, that goes back to my question about unnecessary, putting the general public in unnecessary danger, which is against standard operating procedure, and you have to ask why. Now, in all of this that's going on, the dreamer is observing this with this family that's almost in a protected bubble, with all this shooting going on around them. But yet the dreamer is just a witness. No harm comes to the dreamer or the dreamer's family. Yet there's all this chaos that's going on around, which is quite amazing when you think about it. So, what connects all of this, all of these bits? And it took me a while to see possible connections. And the only person who can be absolutely certain of the connections would be the dreamer. And I'll be fascinated to find out what the dreamer thinks of this afterwards. But I feel the connection between these three dreamlets has to do, and the words came to me kind of, out of the ether: elevation and escalation. So you have escalations and elevations in that. In the first part, the first bit of the dream, there was an escalation or appearance of an escalation in a relationship, but in a negative sense. I mean, if this person was making sexual or advances, which may be the case, it wasn't in someone's own home in their kitchen. That's an escalation of events, but not in a positive way. Then you go to this kind of in the middle of this, almost sandwich, in this middle bit, in the second part, the second little dream. There's an elevation or an implication again of elevation in some way going on, because the dreamer is looking at information about different judo belts, the different levels and the different colors represented for those levels. So in preparation, perhaps for being graded. So an upgrade, in other words, moving to something higher rather than lower. And then you get to the third bit of the dream. And again, it's escalation, but this again, escalation in a negative sense. Things being blown completely out of proportion to the point where people get shot. Now, interestingly enough, in both of these escalation cases or scenarios, it was at the instigation of a woman. Um, both either being actually or potentially negative. So in the first bit, the female friend, and in the third bit, the female cop. There was in the no females whatsoever appearing in the middle, which is interesting. That's another story. But both of these situations could turn out for different reasons very badly if the wrong move or decision is made. The only inactive or passive female in all of this is the dreamer's wife. And my question here for the dreamer was, is there any area or in the dreamer's life or any person in the dreamer's life where on the one hand they might be attracted to something, a way of thinking, a way of doing, or a certain person, but the kind of powers that be, as I call them, or morals police of some kind, swoop in and turn the situation very ugly. Is the dreamer um, have in mind a person or situation that may evoke these kinds of emotions, this kind of attraction, but then maybe in a negative sense, or maybe not attraction, or being repelled even by someone that draws them in, but just like too much drama, can't handle that. Just just go, leave me alone in my little bubble. It's interesting. Like I said, you have almost a sandwich going on here. You've got these two ill-intentioned, perhaps, females on either end, but you've got the dreamer on the dreamer's own, contemplating activity that will move them to a higher place. And I mean, it happens to be a judo belt, and it may have actually been a judo competition, but the contrast between the two bits on either end is quite stark, because there's a moment of learning, of enlightenment, reflection, and preparation, as opposed to the implied chaos in the first part of the dream and the definite chaos at the end of the dream. And I wonder here if the dreamer was faced with a situation that, had they had time, they gave time to consider the situation, and then decided, you know what, not for me, and opted out, and stayed in kind of in this protected space out of all of the chaos. Even though he was involved in the situation, caught up in this shootout, but the dreamer and his family were only there as observers, almost if, like they said, they were watching a movie, a 3D a 3D movie, but there was no screen. Um, so my question here for the dreamer is there, or has there been, a situation that the dreamer may have been glad to have avoided, or could see it coming and was able to avoid it, or had time to think about it and then avoided it? So because the dreamer, as far as we can tell, the dreamer and the dreamer's family were completely unharmed, despite other people getting shot and a lot of blood being spilled. So there's something there, I think, for the dreamer with regard to, uh, excuse me, behavior or taking an action that left them in a place of safety, perhaps in some way. So there you have it, shootouts and judo belts and all kinds of things, and seductive and aggressive aggressive people. But thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.